Welcome into Pro Football Ireland as we get ready for the fourth week of the NFL season. Pro Football Ireland, Ireland's biggest NFL podcast network. Daily content, search Pro Football Ireland or find us on all social media platforms at NFL Ireland. Michael McQuaid, Mark Hogan, Jason Hez, as we look ahead to the fourth week of the season. Such a big week coming up. Mark, first off for you, man, we got the London game starting this week. We're heading to London town. Lands in May on Sunday morning. Day in, day out. Get out immediately sort of situation. But honestly, really, really excited for it. But more so, man, it's been a great 3 weeks in the NFL. It's been a great few weeks for this brand, for Pro Football Ireland, and we massively appreciate everybody's help and support to grow it in such a short time period. But some great games this weekend as well. How are you doing?
Yeah, the idea to get the podcast done in English accents didn't quite get across the line, but I'm so excited now to be going over to London for the next 3 weeks. It's definitely one of those things that we kind of take for granted that the games are there, but like when I'm thinking this week that I'm going to an NFL game, it's so exciting. And, you know, I think so many people on the island of Ireland have been to an NFL game now that the allure of it's gone. But we're going to talk about it in a minute because I'm sure there's people that are going for the first time to their first NFL game, especially over the next 3 weeks. And it's like, I certainly remember mine and the buzz of, I finally done it. I've been to an NFL game. So I'm excited for all those people that get to say that this week.
Do give us a shout / buy us a pint in Dublin Airport at 5:25 a.m. on Sunday morning. If you see us, and I'll be going from Belfast International Airport for the Tottenham game. So we will have a presence at all 3 London games. Please God, we'll be in Germany as well. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But Jason, good to see you as well, sir. We're back 2 weeks in a row now, man. You're looking fresh. How you doing?
See you guys. Yeah, I'll be very envious watching you two head over to London and watch those games. I'm still not quite at that stage myself, but I'll enjoy them from the couch anyway, no doubt. But yeah, three great games coming up in a row. I really like the way it's structured. You know, just complete London theme for the next 3 weeks, and then we have Germany in early November, so we can just fully embrace ourselves in this international series.
Yeah, it's going to be sweet. It's going to be sweet. That first game is Falcons-Jags. Next week is the Jags. For the first time ever in the NFL, a team staying over and playing as the away team against the Buffalo Bills in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium Sunday week. And then Ravens-Titans a week after that. It's going to be a mad few weeks. Really, really excited for it. That Falcons-Jags game is on Virgin Media 3 in the Republic from 1:50 on Sunday. And it's on ITV1 in Northern Ireland on Sunday also. I had to do that, Mark. Let's talk London slate generally. Just lads, your general thoughts on the London slate this year, and Mark, give us like a London memory that you've bottled up because you'll love mine in a few minutes whenever I give it to you.
Yeah, speaking about the slate, like we talked to Henry Hodgson when the games got announced, and we said, "Is this the best slate?" We must have mentioned it a few weeks ago because it feels like we talked about it a few weeks ago. But now that we're here, I mean, we have 3 teams that are currently sitting in playoff seeding. And look, I know we're only going into week 4, but we have genuine contenders, and that's what's so exciting about it. I mean, the teams I'm talking about are Baltimore, Buffalo, and Atlanta sit in those playoff spots, and I think there's a very, very good chance that they remain in them come week 17 and 18. And then the Jaguars, who we all expect, and they were put down by some people like Peter King as the number 1 seed because they were going to be able to take care of their division. They've had a couple of unfortunate weeks. They picked up losses, obviously a surprise one against the Texans, and the week before that was against the Chiefs. But, I mean, the Tennessee Titans are the only one that you'd say aren't going to get there, and they could get there if it's the Jags that fall out. So, yeah, to get 4 out of the 5 teams and I'm so confident that 4 out of the 5 teams are going to be going is absolutely outrageous. And we need to kind of look back at what we've had over the last few years. I mean, last year when the Jags were coming, they were coming as 2-5 to play the 2-5 Broncos. The last time the Falcons came, the only thing that was worth seeing from them was Kyle Pitts. So I suppose it's just that even if the games don't turn out to be great, it's that we can look forward to every single one. And I think the thing that says it all is ESPN is sending, or at least having their A team cover this game. The likes of Laura Rutledge, Dan Orlovsky, Lewis Riddick, they're all on this. I think Mina Kimes herself will be looking at it, except for she went on maternity leave this week. So just the respect that even this game is getting, it's because they're bona fide teams that we're going to see.
What about you, my man, Jason? Like, I mean, I think for a lot of people, Jason, I'll talk about this more in a minute, but I don't think. I think it would be rude to call this a podcast. I don't think brands, I don't think networks, certainly in Europe, would be around, a lot of them, if it wasn't for games in London, if it wasn't for continued growth.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the caliber of the teams really is a testament to that. Fun little stat here for you guys. I've found this out myself now through Wikipedia is my source, by the way. So I hope there's no mistake here. But in 2007, the Giants won the first ever London game, 13-10 against the Dolphins. That year, they went on to win the Super Bowl, beating the Pats, of course, in that famous game to end their streak. But there's been 32 games since then. So that's, 64 teams or 64 chances at a Super Bowl. But not one of them has gone on to win the Super Bowl in the same year as playing in London since. So I think with the teams we have playing this year, it's as good a chance as any for a streak like that to end. I'm interested to see how some of the teams will respond to playing in London. They have limited experience, excluding the Jaguars, of course. It's the Bills' second game. They lost the first to the Jaguars. The Ravens and Titans have each played one game. Both lost that also. The Ravens got hammered actually by the Jaguars in 2017, if anyone remembers that. And the Titans lost by just 1 point to the Chargers. So I think a few of these teams have something to prove in their own sense, but just collectively, I'm kind of interested in that Super Bowl stat there because it has been a while now, 15 plus years since that's been done. I hope. Blame it on Wikipedia if that's not true. But that's one thing I'll be keeping an eye on as we go through this year.
Do you know what? You would certainly say that with especially the Bills, maybe the Jags, the Chiefs, and the Dolphins, I mean, them all playing in Europe, you'd have to think that at least one of the participants is going to play this year in Europe.
Yeah, I think it really is. It's like, when the games were announced, I said at the time, I think it's the best slate we've ever gotten. And now after 3 weeks of football, I think that's absolutely holding up. I mean, yeah, I don't want to jump ahead too much to the Germany game, but that Chiefs-Dolphins game could be the top two teams in the league by then when it comes over.
Everyone starts saying the rosary that we actually get into that game, boys. That's a whole different conversation. Have we got a favourite London memory? For me, it's more than just a memory of a game. I had just moved back from a year living in Spain. My beloved Denver Broncos, my former beloved Denver Broncos after last week, had just won the Super Bowl on a high. Nothing could go wrong. And I was going to Sunday Night Football in Denver in the middle of November, and I was sitting in Manchester. I was living in Manchester for the year, and I thought to myself, God, there's an NFL game on. I might go down for the crack. Might see it. Never been to a game. So I thought, right, I'll go down. And it ended up being Kirk Cousins against Andy Dalton in Wembley.
The tie game.
Yeah.
No
the tie
way.
game. I paid £20 for a ticket, sterling. I got a train, and I missed my train back because the game went to overtime, and I'll never forget it. It felt like it was going on and on and on and on, and I'll never forget because the Redskins, as they were called at the time, had a chance to win it and they missed the field goal with about 4 minutes to go, and there was a collective groan in the stadium, but also a collective roar. I was loving it. I was buzzing it.
Wasn't it?
Bengals
Wasn't
fumbled.
it really close in as well? Wasn't it? Wasn't it like it was definitely a kickable, and it was just the lashing of rain that was there.
It was, and then it was like there like while it was that collective groan, there was like that collective like yes, more football. Bengals fumble, and then obviously Washington end up winning it. But honestly, I look back on that day now, and like it's hard to believe the situation that we're all in now. It's a bit weird. Like I even remember watching, the Panthers against the Bucks at Tottenham as a fan at home, and to think we're all going over now, it sort of hits home. It's going to be a great crack this weekend, but more so, I feel like we all have like a collective responsibility to try and help grow the game in Ireland for people that deserve to get good Irish coverage, and that's something that I know you boys want to do as well over these next few weeks. I think this is a great slate of games. And I'm not saying that because we're talking about the NFL on the podcast network in Ireland. I think this game this weekend is good. We'll talk about it more down the stretch. I think like Atlanta can pose a real threat to this Jacksonville Jaguars team, who are coming off a loss after last week. I love the matchup next week, and I'm so intrigued to see how Jacksonville spend a week at the Grove. And that's a huge deal internationally. It's a huge test for the NFL. And like there's no secret. We can see they want to grow it again next year. They're talking about Madrid. Let's see what happens. And the game with the Titans and the Ravens, two big supported teams. In my opinion, I think that'll be the best atmosphere this year in London, which is maybe a bit controversial saying that with Buffalo coming over. I think that'll be the best atmosphere. And then Germany, that's when it all starts. So it's gonna be a great 7 to 8 weeks. I'm really excited now. But that was my memory. I'm waiting for Mark Hogan to tell me he was at the Giants Dolphins game here or something legendary. So go for it.
No. Do you know what? My first game was in 2017 against the Cardinals. And I suppose when you ask for a memory, especially if people are listening to this, maybe going over on the plane or whatever, and I tell you, it was so exciting because it was my first Cardinals game. It was a real pinch me moment because I never actually thought I'd see the Cardinals. Because again, this is 2017. The NFL seemed so much further away. But they don't do the events so much anymore. But there was an NFL event hosted by, of course, Neil Reynolds. I remember seeing Mark Dalton, the head of communications. You probably know the name, Jason, from the Arizona Cardinals. And even someone like that got me excited. At the event, I was sitting in a seat and I looked to my right, and Sean McVay was the next guest on, and he was standing right next to me. And I could see the white in his eyes. And I was like, wow, he's right there. This guy, Sean McVay, this is insane. I leave that event and I see Steve Keim queuing up, the general manager at the time, for the London Eye. I went and shook his hand. I was on my way to a New Era store where Tyrann Mathieu was signing pictures or whatever. I didn't get into the store because I got there late, but I was there just in time that he was leaving, and I got to shake his hand. I got an autograph or whatever that he was already pre-signed from the store. It's probably somewhere in my room still here now. And then the game itself was, kind of a blur. It was freezing in Twickenham. But I remember at the end of it, and this is what going to a game is like. Adrian Peterson must have lost the necklace. And he stood around for about half an hour after the game, just combing the field with different equipment guys trying to find it. And I was like, this is the stuff that when you go off air or when the cameras turn off, you don't get to see. And then I could swear that Larry Fitzgerald came out and helped him look for it as well. And this was the game that Carson Palmer had to retire after, essentially, because he got injured. So I remember being really devastated that it was 1-over. I remember waiting for a bus, could not get a bus, just thinking and looking for content around Carson Palmer. So the day, 2 nights, maybe 3 nights that I was there were an absolute dream come true. And I hope it's the same for another fan that's going over there this weekend.
Hopefully a fan, Jason, will have their Taylor Swift experience or something awesome. Had to drop that in because we've been talking about that off camera. Jason, tell us your moment. Have you had a moment? Did you go to that amazing game for the Rams? For the Cardinals?
I was there.
That was a bad game for the Cardinals back then, boys. Was it 33-zip or something?
33-0, and my experience of Cardinals games has gotten ever so slightly worse.
Oh my God. What game have you been to since?
I went to the Broncos game, was my next game. What was it, 42-10, which
Thursday
is
night,
about the same points differential. And then I went to the Rams-Cardinals game on Monday Night Football, where when Aaron Donald absolutely threw Kyler Murray around. DeAndre Hopkins got injured in that game, and so did Odell Beckham. I think that's when his injury started to happen with the Rams, if I remember that correctly. But in between all that, I did go to a Chicago Bears beatdown in Chicago. That was pretty sweet. In lashing right.
I'm just impressed you managed to stay till the end and beyond of that London game. I think I was gone halfway through the fourth quarter, to be honest. But yeah, in terms of my memory, just a couple. I've a quick one at the start, but I had a chance. It must have been in 2014. They shut down the street for kind of a bit of a festival on the weekend of games. I think it was Regent Street at the time. And I just strolled down the street and bumped into the late great Kevin Cadle, the Sky Sports presenter. He was just enjoying the atmosphere himself, and got a nice photo with him. But I might, and absolutely, look, a gent is as nice as you'd expect in person as well. But a bit of a confession here as well. After I got my photo, a group of lads came up looking for a photo with Kevin. So they handed me their phone, stood next to Kevin, and I'm about 98% sure I hit the wrong button and the phone turned off when the camera wasn't taken. Kevin Cadle was already kind of walking off. It was just all it was too late. I just played dumb, handed him back the phone, and I walked away. So if they're out there, if these people are listening to this podcast somehow, I'm sorry. But anyway.
Oh my God. I thought it was best memory we asked you for.
I probably wouldn't say that's the best memory.
I mean, like Jason, like we literally talked about this. Like, let's talk about our London memories. I've never.
I had to get that off my chest. Get that off my chest. But in terms of a game experience, 2015. So we're all looking forward to clash of two great quarterbacks this weekend, or next weekend, sorry, with Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence of the Bills and Jaguars. I was over there for a clash of two titans as well in 2015 when EJ Manuel of the Bills went head to head with Blake Bortles of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's not a game you would have expected much from, but honestly, it was the best. I've been to a few London games now, and it was far and away the best game I've been to. Absolute toe-to-toe, back and forth encounter. There was a 6-minute span in the second quarter where the Jaguars scored 4 touchdowns. 2 of them were back-to-back defensive touchdowns, back-to-back plays. And the game finished with a 31-yard touchdown pass from Blake Bortles to Alan Hearns with 2 minutes left to win the game, 34-31. So in terms of just personal games that I've experienced, that 2015 game with much weaker looking rosters than will be treated to next week, really delivered. So hopefully these games can live up to that.
EJ Manuel. I once paid over £2,000 sterling of the Queen's English to see Joe Flacco play a quarterback for the Denver Broncos against the Chicago Bears. Anywho, let's move on. Looking forward to London this weekend. If you're in London over the next 3 weeks, please do reach out at NFL Ireland's your best bet. Instagram, X, TikTok as well. I hear we're all dab hands on TikTok, boys. Sure, but no, please do reach out. We'd love to meet you. Can't grab pints because we're working, but we can do anything else. Maybe Mark might grab a pint. I don't know, but we'll see. On the college football podcast over the last few weeks, it's sort of a running joke that all we do is talk about the Colorado Buffs. And thankfully this week that's going to come to an end whenever they eventually lose again and the hype train ends. I feel like this is a topic, Mark, that we're going to sort of repeat on the NFL podcast. We're going to talk about the New York Jets. And I feel like metaphorically I'm banging my head against the wall here, only because of the way that they've acted. Like, I watched, first off, for people listening to the podcast and watching the show, they bring in Trevor Siemian. They don't make a trade at the time of recording. Store Magnus dependent. Let's see what happens. But Mark, I have to say, I think it's an inept decision by the New York Jets organization. I think it's poor. I think when you've got a team that's in a window in terms of what they have on both sides of the ball, I think this will cost, I can't believe I'm saying this could cost Robert Saleh his job at the end of the year. And I never thought I was going to say that. I think for him to stand up on that podium every day and say, Zach Wilson's their guy. Well, he's not their guy. And I can tell you one thing, as somebody that has suffered for the last 8 years, never mind last week with 70 points, I can tell you, while Trevor Siemian has a ring, he's not the guy either. So, Mark, what the hell's going on in New York? Should Colin Kaepernick come in now?
I think it'd be crazy to get rid of Robert Saleh. I think this is going to fall on Joe Douglas, because at least Robert Saleh this week has started to say in different ways that he's not completely in on Zach Wilson, and how he's saying that is by being a bit like, he's not outright saying, no, we're with Zach Wilson through the end of the year. It's, well, that's who I have to work with right now. I mean, at the end of the day, his defense, Robert Saleh's defense, is doing the business. Like, they're keeping the team afloat, and that's why we would talk about training for a quarterback, because that, the team can pick off exactly where they want to be if they just go out and trade one. And I suppose the reason why we're talking about it this week is because I just think it's shocking that they would allow themselves to fall any further into a hole. If there's any team that could pull it off the 0-3, it'd be the Jets with a competent quarterback. But it's almost like they're waiting to go into 0-4. And that's when the panic stations, that's when there's no more room for maneuver. But it looks like that's what's going to happen because, Trevor Simeon was brought in this week, and it's like, wait, are you serious? That's all they've done? I was worried when we said we'd talk about this week. I was like, there's no way we get to Wednesday night's recording and there hasn't been a major move. And here we sit on Wednesday night and there hasn't been a major move. Now, that said, we have, in the last 2 weeks, talked about subjects, and as soon as we've ended them, they have been, or a massive news story is broken. So my fingers are almost crossed that happens again this week because the Jets team is too good and they've just invested too much. I mean, look, it was the second round pick is all they gave up for Aaron Rodgers. They won't have to give up the first round pick now because you won't have the playing time. But it's like, just push the chips in. This is it. This is as good as a team as you can get. End of story. Like, there's no point waiting anymore. And that's why we can talk about it specifically to the New York Jets, because everything has worked perfectly. They have the good head coach that is running a fantastic defense. They have the makings of a great offense before yes, down the road, you're going to have to pay Sauce Gardner. You're going to have to pay Garrett Wilson. But it's like, you're going to have to eventually look for a young quarterback because Aaron Rodgers was only supposed to be a 2-year rental. I mean, do you want to stop there and I'll hear Jason's thoughts, because I do want to come back and say what the obvious solution seems to be.
Well, Jason, just to add to what you're going to say, at what point do we see Trevor Simeon on Sunday?
Yeah, look, Michael, you'll have experience watching Simeon. I'll leave you talk on him in depth, but I definitely, on paper, doesn't seem like the answer. Completely agree with what Mark's saying. If there's ever a time to go all in and try and make a push for a Super Bowl, it's now for the Jets, the way that roster is built and just how strong the defense is. They have weapons on offense. They're really just missing that one piece. And I do think the answer could be a veteran to guide them over the line. One name, I maybe this is more looking to be fun than actually realistic, but we've been robbed of all these Aaron Rodgers headlines that we should be getting this season, which is just completely unfortunate because it would have just been absolute, content left, right, and center watching the Jets led by Aaron Rodgers. But there is one name out there who's perhaps the only name that's bigger than Aaron Rodgers. A certain somebody whose ownership deal has yet to be finalized with the Las Vegas Raiders. Certain somebody who's has a house in New York. He has 7 Super Bowls. I am, of course, talking about Nathan Peterman. No, Tom Brady, of course. The Jets haven't approached him, apparently, reportedly. Look, he might have absolutely no interest in reality. But I think a quarterback like him, with his experience, he could absolutely slot in and steer the ship on his way to an 8th Super Bowl. Maybe that's too outlandish. Maybe that's too much of a dream scenario. Maybe he's too much blue, red, and white in his heart of the New England Patriots to actually act on something like that. But if you were to take team names out of it and you put that roster in front of Tom Brady, I guarantee you he's confident he could make a run at the Super Bowl.
I mean, Mark, I'll just jump in very quickly and say this. My team went from winning the ring to having a quarterback battle between Trevor Simeon and Mark Sanchez and Paxton Lynch. I'm not going to sit here for the next 5 minutes and waste a week 4 preview on talking about Trevor Simeon. The reality for people is, years on, Trevor Simeon is not an answer, nor is he a long-term answer for this team. Go out and get someone. If you need to take some of your draft picks for the next 2 to 3 years and make a deal, because let's be frank, I mean, Jeff said it on his podcast on Monday night, people are going to want you to pay because they know you're hurting. But if you believe you're that close, you go and get someone. And if you're not going to go get someone and you lose this weekend, I'm afraid you tank and you go after a Caleb Williams and you let him sit behind Rodgers for a year next year. Jason's right. We've been robbed. We've been robbed for a year. But for me, with some of the names out there, not even Tom Brady, who's lost apparently 10 or 20 pounds due to lack of stress, he ain't coming back. The Colin Kaepernick thing's a joke. I'm sorry. Like it's not going to happen. And it's a joke in the sense of this is something, if it was 3 or 4 years ago, yes, it's fine. This is not even a realistic storyline anymore. That is like Teddy Sheringham coming out 5 years ago and saying he wants to play for Man United. Well, then again, Man United went and got Johnny Evans, so maybe that goes out the window. But look, in all seriousness, I think it's if I'm a Jets fan, I'm disgusted at this week because they're not bringing anybody. I am not, and I don't want to jinx this, Mark. I am not concerned with a storyline for this podcast. The Jets have brought in Simeon. They're going to cover the cracks this week. What will happen is they'll lose this weekend. The fans will boo. Maybe Simeon might get in the third quarter if he's even active for the game because of the timing of it, or if he even gets into it. I believe he has to be in it in some way. And then the cycle will start again. They're running out of time. They've got about 2 weeks. And I believe next week we're at the point where it's not even a talking point anymore because I think they're done, which is a real pity for that division and a real bonus for the New England Patriots, who are not even in the storylines at the minute in ways they should be just outside of their defense. You have the answer to all of the Jets' problems with Mark, so let us all know who you think should come in.
Yeah, look, no, when it comes to Colin Kaepernick, he's been out of the league for longer than he was in the league. It's been 7 years since he last took a snap. It's crazy to think that he just broke back in. We saw what 2 years off did to Sean
I've been married
Watson.
6 years.
There you go. Like he's just it's just nonsensical thing, and I know he wants to do it for the practice squad or whatever. But let's not even go towards it. But the obvious name and the successor for the Matthew Stafford talk, because Matthew Stafford is untradeable now because the LA Rams are actually competitive, and that was the obvious name in the beginning. It's Kirk Cousins from the Minnesota Vikings. It's beyond possible because he's a free agent next year. The team did not commit to him, so he's a free agent. He can't be tagged because it's impossible because he's been tagged a couple of times before. You just take up way too much money, and they're a team themselves that are going nowhere. The Vikings fans will hate to hear that being said because they're waiting to go and get a win against the Carolina Panthers this week. That will then convince themselves that they can go 6-0 in the division and then win all of the winnable games. Like if I put on my purple tinted glasses as a Vikings fan, it's like I'm saying that they go and beat the Saints, the Falcons, the Raiders, and the Broncos to get to those wins plus the division wins gets them over the line and they go to the playoffs. That's just completely saying, okay, we lose to the 49ers, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. Like, that's the only wiggle room. They don't have one more game more than that. So they have to run the table for the teams that they have remaining on that schedule. And it's like, it's just compensation-wise, what you give up is the question that I'm asking, because like we know the Vikings have like done themselves this year. Like all the good karma that they had from last year, that every bounce of the ball, like if you can't finish off the Chargers last weekend, you're not going anywhere and you're only wasting. So it's like, if you know that Kirk Cousins isn't part of the future, you might as well get the picks now, because at least with the Jets are only a quarterback away and a quarterback of his caliber away. Whereas whatever has happened to Minnesota is, they were always built on shaky foundations going back to their playoff spot last year. And like, again, fans will absolutely hate to hear that, but it's just, that's the fact. Whereas the Jets are such a solid team. And yeah, does Kirk Cousins return to the team next year? The only reason I can see him do it is if he doesn't want to move his family. He's 35 years of age. That's the only negative that I see going with it. But what is the compensation? The Jets gave up the second round pick for Aaron Rodgers. A third isn't going to get it done. I'm kind of wondering, would they trade a player and a third, or give up the first and get a second back from the Vikings? That seems to make sense for me, because you gave up a second round pick once upon a time for Zach Wilson. Like, we know the picks don't, always do it for whatever team. Especially when Joe Douglas, if Joe Douglas doesn't get a trade across the line, he's losing his job at the end of the year. So why is he protecting picks for a future general manager of the New York Jets? Just spend the first round pick to bring in Kirk Cousins, hopefully get back a second if you're going to be around next year, and then go and attack this thing before it's too late. Because like, if they go to 0-4, it's like, how big of a hole do you want to climb out of?
I think personally, I think the biggest obstacle in that scenario, and you've both touched on it, but it is just the timelines of it. When are the Vikings actually going to throw in the towel and admit to the fans that they're throwing in the towel? They are 0-3, but at the end of the day, they've lost 3 very close games to 3 good teams. I don't think the fans will be too happy if they trade away their quarterback right now. And similarly, if it lasts a couple more weeks and they do keep losing and it is time to unload Kirk Cousins, well then, Michael, as you said, maybe the Jets have lost a few too many games. The hole is too deep, and now they don't even want to try and get a quarterback. They might as well just tank on the season and get a young guy to play after Rodgers plays next year. So I do think a timing thing ultimately will be the biggest barrier to that scenario personally. But on paper, it is just a nice matchup for sure.
Yeah, and like if they didn't get Aaron Rodgers this summer, or sorry, last summer, would Zach Wilson be with this team? I don't believe he would have been. I believe they would have got rid of him, got somebody else in. I think they were happy to have that comfort blanket there with Zach Wilson, and it went pear shaped on him with Aaron Rodgers, and we all know what happened.
They should
there,
never have had him as the number 2 backup.
I agree.
Like, it's absolutely like this team has also had Sam Darnold. Like, they've had no luck with quarterbacks. So it's like they're gonna have to go after a veteran because they haven't been able to develop one. Now that's through different regimes, obviously, but like that's where I'm coming from use your first round pick, because you're gonna have to use your first round pick on a quarterback. Like, end of story. That's where they're at. But it's like if you haven't been able to develop one in years, like they're probably hoping to sign a Kirk Cousins next year in the offseason because they need, like, honestly, he could end up there next year.
Yeah, absolutely. September the 12th, 2019, I was sitting in a bar in Dallas Fort Worth Airport, and I was watching Monday Night Football with the Jets, and Sam Darnold goes down, and on comes Trevor Siemian, and he's back in New York this weekend. Time will tell what happens. Let's see. Okay, we're at the end of September. We are at the end of September. Pro Football Ireland. Look, folks, in case you're wondering, we don't do picks. We talk through topics. We have a bit of crack. Picks podcast Friday morning. Michael and Jeff chatting absolute dirt. Now, Jeff, boys, says that he is getting his picks right, presented by 88 Sport, 18 plus, be gamble aware. But I know he definitely got a few wrong last week. So
add him into the old graphic there. We have the graphic going.
Oh,
All of
God.
us are beating or at least equaling the bookies so far, which is not an easy feat, I must say. So
I'm definitely in my worst form ever. Like, ever. Like, I had a good run for a couple of years, and like I feel like this year it's either I'm being too unpredictable with stuff, and I don't know. Anyway, let's not fall into the trap with picks. I think it's more
No, let's do
important.
picks. Let's do picks. I mean, you clearly want to do picks, Michael. All right, let's do it. All right.
Right. So end of September, Sunday's the 1st of October already, boys. Jesus, I can't wait for that week where the games are on earlier. Oh, boys, it's gonna be beautiful. So let's ask each other the question. At the end of September 2023, what's the best division of football? And I didn't look at the boys' notes or WhatsApp groups. So if I go first and I can see clearly that I've picked one of the boys' selections, I'm in trouble. So I'm going to go first just in case and say the best division of football at the minute, boys, is the AFC North by a landslide. Are we okay? Have we all got different results? Yeah?
Proceed.
Good. You got a Bengals team that are bottom of the AFC North, and like I watched the game at the weekend on Monday Night Football, and yes, there's a whole correlation point. And we talked about it with James Scahill about Joe Burrow, should he play, should he not play? I was definitely one, and you can listen back to last week. I was one of the people that was like, he should not be playing on a month of Sundays. He should hold off and wait in his injury. They get over the line at 1-2, and frankly, when he gets back, if he can get back to even 90 to 95% for the rest of the season, and I think any neutral hopes that he does, they'll go on a run. And the Browns have had a sketchy few weeks with Deshaun Watson, but they're efficient on both sides of the ball. The Ravens should not have lost last week. They're sitting 2-1. And look, biased hats away, the Pittsburgh Steelers look good. For them to go into Vegas the other night and play the way they played, the offense is picking up, the defense is legit. But Kenny Pickett's slowly but surely getting that confidence up. This, I feel, is going to be the division that we're sitting in at the end of December, start of January, going, I can't wait to watch Steelers Browns, or I can't wait to watch the Ravens against the Bengals in week 17, week 18, because I feel like this is going to be the one division that truly goes down to the wire. Marcus, who have you got?
No, you did not read the WhatsApp because it was nominated that Jason would go next, Michael.
Okay, let's go. So yeah, Michael, you're wrong. So you've 4 very good teams in the AFC North there.
You idiot, Michael. You've wasted our time, Michael. Thanks for that.
I'll just leave the podcast, right? Good luck, Michael.
So they are, 4 good teams, but the AFC East has at least 2 what look like great teams right now in the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. I mean, I'm not going to go too in depth of talking about each team here, but for the Miami Dolphins, I've been watching the NFL for 15, 16 years now, and I've never seen anything like I saw last Sunday against, you can mute me right now, Michael, if you want, against the Denver Broncos. 70 points is just something else. Like Mike McDaniel is an absolute wizard, and I just don't know how people are going to stop him anytime soon. It's not like the things he's doing, it's very innovative and he's using speed like ways it's never been used, but we're seeing just the same concepts, like post routes be wide open time after time. Tua to Tyreek Hill. Pass rushers can't get near Tua. Forget about his concussion injuries. He's not getting touched. I think he's the deepest average depth of target and the quickest time to throw in the league, which is just a mind-boggling combination. The league comes in ebbs and flows, and it is likely that some defense, maybe it's the Cleveland Browns, who look also like a very good team at the moment. Maybe they're the ones to first find out and crack this Miami offense, but right now it looks like they're just miles ahead of everyone else. And if Mike McDaniel keeps doing his thing, the Dolphins are definitely in line for their best shot at a Super Bowl in a long time. The Buffalo Bills, they're playing the Dolphins this Sunday, which will be an absolutely amazing game to watch. They had a slightly slow start to the season against the Jets in week 1, where they lost. Josh Allen looked like rookie Josh Allen, but absolutely back to their dominant ways the last 2 weeks, blowing out the Raiders and what looked like a good Washington Commanders team as well. So the Bills are back, and they might be two of the best teams in the league right now with the way they're playing right there. New England are fiery. They're always going to be competitive. Mark, you talked about them in depth last week, or at least their defense. But with Bill Belichick team, and Mac Jones is playing some good football as well. They're always going to be in games. At worst, their floor is always going to be 8-9 wins. So when a third place team in the division is clocking those up, the division is strong. We've just talked about the Jets. I won't go into them. It's just a shame Aaron Rodgers isn't there, because imagine throwing an Aaron Rodgers-led New York Jets team into the mix in that division. It would be just something else. But yeah, the AFC East, I think it's the best division in football at the moment.
I can't wait to hear Mark pick the NFC North.
Yeah, no, I can't believe I'm saying this, because I absolutely agree with the two of you, but I do a little thing every Tuesday called the Power Rankings. So when we had this exercise come up, I said, you know what, I must check who I have in the Power Rankings ranked as the best division if we're going to do this topic. So I went through each of the teams and I averaged out their best spots. So number 8, it was the NFC South, which kind of surprised me, because the Saints and the Falcons are good, but then when you have 2 poor teams in the division, that's going to happen. The AFC South was next. It's just the Jags and then the rest behind them. AFC West has only got the Chiefs in it. Come to number 4, and it was the NFC East. A bit similar. They have a powerhouse in the Eagles and Cowboys, but then they have the Giants and the Commanders. It got a bit interesting after that when I looked at the AFC North came in, and I think its own competitiveness is what doesn't help it within the power rankings. I actually think that that's the correct answer, Michael, because like all of those teams, you wouldn't want to play a single one of them. But that's what I would say goes against the AFC East. They have 2 powerhouses in the Dolphins and the Bills. But I think a lot of franchises, a lot of fan bases at the moment would take a game against the Jets and the Patriots. And it left me with what's been historically the best division over the last few years, and went in probably ranked the worst division this year. Surprisingly, the NFC West came out as my best division. We all know how good the 49ers are. The Rams have been an absolute revelation under Sean McVay, and I would not go near wanting to play a game against them. They lost, of course, against the Bengals this weekend, but the 2 weeks before that, they really ran the Rams close, and obviously they had their upset in week 1, or what was seen as an upset. I don't want to see what they're going to be able to do when they have Cooper Kupp come back. I think it's going to be amazing. The Seahawks, I suppose, haven't been as explosive, but again, they're one of those teams I don't think many would want to play. And then the Cardinals have been as feisty as hell. I think Jonathan Gannon has absolutely coached this team up. I talked about it a lot on Wednesday's podcast with James, so check that out if you really want me to put on my Cardinals hat. But yeah, I think there's not a team in the NFC West since the Cardinals beat the Cowboys. I think it legitimizes those performances against the Washington Commanders and the New York Giants, where they threw the game away. It was nothing to do with their opponent. It was completely on the Arizona Cardinals. That I don't think there's a team in the NFC West, and I can't believe I'm saying this, that I'd want to play right now. And I think that makes them the best division.
That's really interesting. Like, I can't wait to see how the Cardinals play this weekend. and over the next few weeks, see if they can sort of keep what they done last week, keep it going really. And I have no need to follow any Cardinals podcasts or any other Cardinals news because Jason Hayes tells me everything I need to know in a good way. So I am looking forward to seeing what happens. And controversial NFC West, AFC North, AFC East. The AFC West lads are screaming their heads off here somewhere, boys. AFC South, interesting. It's so competitive, and that just shows you like how fun the season's been. Only 2 or 3 weeks in, which is great.
Well, I'm
Talking
glad
about
that the
fun,
AFC North has held up to its side of the bargain, because we talked about that in Belfast, wasn't it? That was a serious division, or maybe it was in the Dublin show. We talked about those two divisions that you guys mentioned at our live shows and talked about how good they are. And here we are, the first month about to finish in the NFL, and we're none the wiser really about them.
yeah, first month about to finish. It's scary biscuits, boys. Scary biscuits. I'll get a headache if I keep talking about it. So let's actually talk about headaches. Let's do what we done last week. Which player is going to give a coordinator or head coach a headache this week? Who wants to go first for this one? Go for it.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I think the Raiders defensive coordinator Patrick Graham is in for a headache this week. The Raiders have a whole host of problems through 3 weeks, but defending the pass is one of them. So far, the Raiders are allowing the third highest completion rate in the league, 74.8%. The third most touchdowns. They've allowed 7 touchdowns. They've 0 interceptions, and through 3 games they have just 5 sacks. So definitely not as productive defending the pass as they would hope right now. And it's not a good time to be facing the LA Chargers because Keenan Allen is coming to town, and Keenan Allen is my headache player of the week. 31 years old now and showing absolutely no signs of slowing down. Keenan Allen has he leads the league with 32 catches. This past weekend, he became the only player in NFL history with 3 games of 15 plus receptions against the Vikings, of course. He went over 200 yards in that game. Again, that's the most in his career. In a sport where prime years seem to be getting younger and younger, you look at guys like Justin Jefferson bursting on the scene from day one, Jamar Chase, and dominating the wide receiver position early. It's nice to see a guy like Keenan Allen, who's just been so consistent throughout his career, still seemingly getting better at the ripe old age of 31. So I think when him and Justin Herbert are in sync as they were last Sunday, there's not many duos out there in the league that can beat them. And defensive coordinator Patrick Graham is definitely going to have his work cut out for him, and maybe a few sleepless nights this week trying to figure it out.
Hope all the fantasy heads heard that. I love it. Mark, do you want to guess what I'm going to pick this week? Before you do, because this week we haven't had any problems.
Well, do you know what? Your headache last week, Nico Collins showed up, so he did. So way to go on that one.
Thank you very much. I done like a fist pump to the TV, like huzzah. What about another Texans player this week? You up for that? Tank Dell. The Texans play the Steelers this week.
Do you know what? If you put the money on the line, my guess was going to be Tank Dell. It's like Michael's been paying attention to those Texans.
This will probably be the last time I talk about the Texans for a while, unless they do. I wouldn't call it the unthinkable and beat Pittsburgh this week. The game is in NRG in Houston, and the Steelers defense is so good. But at the end of the day, they can only cover so many guys on the field, and if they look at Nico Collins, you're still going to have Tank Dell there, and they have to have a situation where surely CJ Stroud is going to have a situation on Sunday where he has the ball down the field at least once or twice to this guy. I mean, Dell has been the top target in Houston for the last 2 weeks in a row. He's seen 7 targets, catching 5 in for 145 yards and a touchdown last week against the Jags. Over 30 points scored, 17 targets in the last 2 weeks for the Texans. But more so, the combination of both him, Nico Collins, and CJ Stroud has just been so fresh, man. Like, through 3 games, the Steelers have given up 634 yards, 4 touchdowns to the wide receiver position. I just have a feeling that while I think the Steelers will win this weekend, I think the Texans are going to make it really difficult for them. I think Texans fans, a bit like Cardinals fans almost, are starting to turn around their expectations a little bit. I think it'll be electric in NRG, and I think Tank Dell will give a real headache this week to Mike Tomlin et al. in Pittsburgh. It'll be a close game, but I'm going to take the Steelers. But I think Tank gets 1 touchdown, 110 receiving yards against the Steelers defense, which is a bold statement to make. And I shouldn't really be saying this, the lad in the Steelers podcast, but who knows how far they'll take them. Who you got, Mark?
With it being the London game, I said we'd have to look at one of the players, and I said it's time to talk about Bijan Robinson. It's an interesting week for him because he's coming off, I suppose, not a welcome to the NFL moment, but a welcome to the NFL moment insofar as like he was kept, like they looked after him. The Detroit Lions the other day really focused in on defending against Bijan Robinson, and as a whole, it was a smart idea because it was forced Desmond Ridder, the quarterback, to throw the ball and let's get rid of that Falcons run game, and it worked. So I wonder now what the Jags are going to do in London. Are they going to be able to do the same thing and just focus in on Bijan? Now, obviously, we've seen through the first few weeks, especially in that second game, like the vision out of Bijan Robinson is only matched by his own jump cuts and elusiveness. And I cannot wait. When we talked to Henry Hodgson about this in Limerick, he said that he was one of the players that he loved to watch in college, and we want to see him at the next level. Through the first month of the NFL, he has looked phenomenal. So we're so lucky. I suppose as these games come up, I'm looking at the TV being like, just please, those players that we're due to see don't get injured, please. And especially this year, I had Circle Bijan because he's going to be amazing to be able to watch him live. But I suppose let's see how the Jags do against them, because their own run game, I suppose right now they're ranked as 7th in the league, and credit to them, they held Dameon Pierce to 2.2 yards the weekend just gone by. But the week before that, Isaiah Pacheco had 5.8 yards a carry. The week before that, they defended against Deion Jones at the Colts. They now dropped Deion Jones at the Colts. I don't think he's in the league at all now because his performance was so useless. So they haven't, I suppose, been extremely tested, this Jags defense, and they're going to have to work out from when they come over. I suppose we don't know about all that grogginess and all that goes into it. I mean, they're going to have to hope that Bijan has an off day. I know it's supposed to be one player, but obviously Tyler Algier complements him so well that I think we should see a lot of the ball on the ground this weekend.
Looking forward to it. You'll be there. I'll be there. Michaela will be there. Connell will be there as well. So it's going to be a good weekend. Looking forward to Tottenham as well over the next few weeks. The NFL season gets underway on Thursday night this week with a really interesting Thursday night matchup on Thursday Night Football between the Detroit Lions going to Lambeau to play the Green Bay Packers. How many times can I say Thursday in a sentence, boys? Early game Sunday, Falcons, Jags in London. See you there, folks, if you're going there. Miami at Buffalo is at 6 o'clock. Sweet mother of mercy.
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock on Sky.
That's a 6 o'clock. Oh God! Oh
and they
God!
Can't,
We're going to miss part of that.
They can't flex it.
Oh, that's brutal for a lot of the London fans. Yeah, lucky is right.
Thanks, Jason.
Enjoy your Ryanair flight. I'll be on the couch. A couple of beers.
well. Aer Lingus. Be grand. Aer Lingus be nice and cozy.
We're flying Aer Lingus this weekend. It's the one time you get to do it each year. It's because you have to go into Heathrow. It's closer to the stadium. But from there on, we are going to be on the aforementioned desperate Ryanair flights.
EasyJet, or as I call it next week, not so EasyJet. Shout out to EasyJet. Minnesota going to Carolina. Denver going to Chicago. Don't even start me on that. Baltimore, Cleveland. Pittsburgh going to Houston. The Rams going to the Colts. Tampa Bay, New Orleans. Washington at Philly. Cincinnati at Tennessee. That's all again in the early window. We've got 3 games at 9. Vegas, Chargers. New England, Dallas. Arizona, San Francisco. Ooh, Sunday Night Football. Is the Chiefs going to the New York Jets? And Monday Night Football is the Seattle Seahawks going up against the New York Giants. Let's finish this week with a little bit of a...
Do you know what, though? Thank God that there's only one Monday Night Football game. I was wondering, was that becoming a trend in the NFL?
Absolutely not, Mark. Hold on here. So, like, I obviously record with Jeff at 9 o'clock on the Monday, right? So, people listening to this podcast, it takes me like an hour to like get it all read up, a couple of reels made, get the podcast up, audio up for the next day, right? So there's a 2-hour window between that and Monday Night Football starting. 2 games is the way to go. 2 games is the way to go. Now, I'll say this, and we're 49 minutes into this, so I can't get in too much trouble. If Sky Sports or an aforementioned broadcaster in the UK and Ireland can put 2 Monday night games on 2 separate channels, then why are we only getting red zone and one game on a Sunday? And why, if the rest of America, bar the state of Kansas and the state of Illinois, why is every other part of America getting the Kansas City Chicago game moved live on CBS, and yet we have to sit and watch that game last week on a TV channel here? I think fans deserve better. And I don't think that's a negative. I think what's going on is great, but I think we deserve to have better games and more games on TV, frankly. Maybe I'm just talking on the tree, Mark.
I just can't get those Monday night games in live. So I suppose because it's too late. It's a school night, It's the Monday night because I always have to miss Sunday football as well because I'm up too early in the next morning. So I suppose it is great. I suppose it's just funny that they clash as well. It's like I'd almost want to see them on earlier. I know that's not feasible when you have wanting to fill the stadium with fans, but I don't know. I don't know. I get what you're saying, but it's kind of like I like to really use up my Monday, absolutely consuming all the games. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is good to split them up so that we have more time to digest them.
Jason, give me a simple yes or no. 2 games on Monday night?
No. I think I'm not a fan. Yeah, it's a very first world problem here, but I like to just look up the highlights the next day, and they have the score of the other game up in the top left corner as you're watching the highlights of the first game, and I like to avoid that. You like that? No.
Like that.
No, it's a spoiler. I want to see both highlights as their own.
Nice when it's live, though.
Maybe when it's live, yeah. But no, just put them different times. I like all my attention on one game. Use the ad breaks to, get it, do whatever you need to do, whatever. But 2 games is too much. I can't focus on that much.
And obviously, first world problems for everybody in the north. We get to watch Monday Night Football on 2 channels, so it's great. I watched it in Channel 5 the other night. They had the Rams Bengals game on. Greg Rosenthal was in the studio, live from LA. It was, shout out to Greg. It was an interesting watch. Don't know if you guys can get like a bootleg Channel 5.
They did that last year as well, though. Himself and LaDainian Tomlinson do it, right?
MJD.
Yeah. Oh, MJD. Cool. Yeah.
Anyway, let's end off with true or false. My true or false was going to be, my opinion was going to be that the Broncos defense, even though they put out 70 points last week, I was going to say they're not even that bad. And that's what really annoys me so much. I think the standard of coaching is atrocious. I think when you've got Randy Gregory, Alex Singleton, Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons, who I don't think was playing last week, Jonathan Harris, DJ Jones, like how are they conceding 70 points? The answer is Vance, Aloysius Joseph. So if you want to talk about that, you can. My true or false is going to be Buffalo make Miami look average on Sunday. I think the Buffalo defense pressures Miami. Miami find it hard to run the ball against Buffalo, and Tua throws a couple of picks and Buffalo win the game. Somebody go mad at me for saying that.
I think
I can't. My jaw's on the floor over here, so I can't even say a word. No,
look. They got to go into Buffalo on Sunday. They got to do the business. The pressure's on them, sir, not in Buffalo.
Yeah, like Buffalo. I'm just thinking of that Jets game. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, Buffalo have caught a bit more form the last few weeks, but you have to trust what we've seen. And Buffalo struggled against New York that first night, and Miami is just like they are on another planet right now. I have them number 1 in the power rankings. I'm surprised that everyone else didn't, because everyone is just presuming that they're going to get knocked off against Buffalo this week. But you put up 70 points and look as good and have won in so many different ways already this year, have played really strong defenses in the likes of the Patriots. And yeah, I just think they deserve their dues right now. Like, the only thing that the wheels only fall off this thing, it seems, is if they get injured, because McDaniels is absolutely, like, the calls that he's coming up with and the aggression that he is showing within his calls and his creativity. I'm like, if he can sustain this until February, I mean, they're Super Bowl champions if they keep this up,
Ooh, Jason, give us yours, my man.
Yeah, so I think I wouldn't say that I disagree with that as well. I don't think they're going to make the Dolphins look average. I think it might just be a case of we're going to watch 2 very strong offenses both go off on each other. Bills have had been a bit of a, I wouldn't say bogey team of the Dolphins, because it's hard to call them a bogey team when the Bills are just classing themselves. But they have beat up on the Dolphins a couple of times over the last few years. I think the Dolphins got the better of them the last time out, but yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one to watch. In terms of the Broncos defense, just touching that quickly, it's just a bit humorous or amusing to me. Maybe it's just because I'm friends with you, Michael, but the defense has been the last of the Broncos' worries the past few years. It looks like Sean Payton's doing some good stuff at the offense. Russell Wilson looks much improved, and now we're seeing the problems transition to the defense. We're well familiar with Vance Joseph, of course, over the last few years. I think he did pretty well in Arizona, all things considered. I was surprised. He's normally known for coming out strong or perhaps not coming out so strong in games. The other team usually does a lot better in the first half than they do in the second half after he makes his adjustments. But clearly that wasn't the case on Sunday either. They were shocking in both halves. But moving on to my true or false, and this is kind of also involving the Broncos. The Cardinals missing out on Sean Payton has become a blessing in disguise. What do we think, guys?
That's class. Way to go. That's really cool.
No. I think, going back to what you said a second ago, I think the issue is Vance Joseph, and this goes back to, I don't want us to turn into a Denver Broncos podcast, but this goes back to two different elements. First off, John Elway pissing off Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, and that different universe that could be evident right now. Maybe Christian McCaffrey won the Broncos the Super Bowl 6 months ago or 7 months ago. I don't know. But the second element is the way that Vic Fangio was kicked out of Denver is so different to how Vance Joseph was humiliated. And I guess time heals certain things. And look, Vance Joseph done very well in Arizona, especially last year. But Vic Fangio would have got that job. If he had got that job, I don't think we lose by 50 points last week. That's my argument. I think Sean Payton is doing good things in the offense. It's going to take time. Looking back on it now, I don't even care about the comments about the Jets. He is who he is. He's unapologetic. He's took the job. You got to back him. But certainly if they were to go out against Chicago and let in any more than 25 to 30 points, I think his job is on the line, boys, to be honest with you. That sounds nuts. And I don't want to start a whole like arrogance or trying to get clout or trying to get headlines on YouTube or podcasts by saying certain things. How any staff member, including Vance Joseph, got through Monday unscathed when the local media in Colorado was the worst I've seen in 15 years is beyond me. So, no, I don't agree. Sorry for the rant.
I would agree with it because I think that the attention that Sean Payton has brought to the Broncos, the Cardinals didn't need that. That they have a hungry team, that these guys are floating under the radar, and that was allowed to happen through Jonathan Gannon. I don't think he purposely meant to make all those gaffes in the offseason, but people didn't take Jonathan Gannon seriously at all. So much so that I, as a Cardinals fan, had absolutely no faith in him. And it's just been perfect for the guys that he has, for the investment that the owner was willing to make in the team, as you know, he kind of looked forward to getting Caleb Williams potentially. That Jonathan Gannon has been a more humble guy and a more humble approach that has been able to get the best out of players. I think Sean Payton, the attention he would have brought and the way that he would have trained up the team isn't what would have succeeded with this group of players. So yeah, I think that's so smart what you're saying there, Jason.
Interesting. Mark, have you given your true or false, or am I done?
Yeah, I'm not going to pick my own team, though. I'm actually going to say, and I'm going to probably annoy every fan base because every fan base thinks that this is them, but I'm going to say true or false. We're all going with true, all right? I suppose this segment is never, ever going to get a false because obviously we believe in what we're saying, but true or false, the Baltimore Ravens are the most injured team or have been hit by the injury bug more so than any other team in the league. I mean, you can look at the Cincinnati Bengals and say, oh, well, Joe Burrow, or you could look at the New York Jets, oh, our season has been derailed because of Aaron Rodgers. But I suppose this is almost to give an excuse to the Baltimore Ravens losing to the Colts the other day. And it kind of goes back to last year because they had their fair number of injuries as well. They had 7 starters out on the past weekend. OBJ is the headline one. Look, we're going to talk when they're coming to London about that passing attack. I don't think that OBJ is ever going to live up to the billing. But then they were missing Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum off the O-line. That probably led to a Lamar Jackson fumble, because he was just absolutely destroyed. Marcus Williams and Marlon Humphrey were out of the defensive back group. Probably explains why Gardner Minshew was able to look so confident as he did. And then Adefe Owa from the linebacker group was gone. That's probably why Zach Moss had such a good game. So it's like when you're missing 7 starters spread out so throughout the team. Now, I do think they're getting the 2 O-linemen back, and they're getting Marcus Williams back this weekend. So it'll definitely help them. But I don't think there's any other team in the NFL that has been so depleted so early on.
You couldn't be more right.
And I didn't even mention the running back group as well. They've lost J.K. Dobbins for the year as well. Like they're
a walk-in hospital, mate. They're a walk-in hospital.
Yeah, at least the majority of those injuries aren't season-ending, but it's definitely not ideal. Just the amount, the quantity is just through the roof. They're a team that wants to be a run-first type of team. I think that Tyler Linderbaum injury, and it's good to hear that he should be coming back. It's more than just missing the odd block here and there. The center of an offensive line is pretty much the quarterback of that offensive line, and it can make everything else look a bit more disjointed. And when you have your top 3 running backs out, offensive line issues, I think that they'll be very happy that they're 2-1 at this point, to be honest. If they can get, I don't know when their bye is coming up, but I'd hope for their sake it's soon. If they can get some bit healthy, then they're absolutely in a position to make a very strong run in the second half of the season, because they haven't had a fair shake so far.
Yeah. A lot to be said this weekend. They're playing the Cleveland Browns. That's a massive game. That's a massive game for the AFC North.
It's massive. Massive weekend ahead. Looking forward to London. Jason, hopefully get you in London next year, mate. All right, mate. And sort of see.
Yeah, for people wondering, it's the injury is keeping you sidelined from coming to London. Really, you probably couldn't get on a flight.
Yeah,
Jason.
pretty much. Yeah, just a whole. Well, maybe a nice first class Aer Lingus flight, as you seem to be going with, would be all right. But I was picturing a cramped Ryanair kind of flight. Yeah, but no, I'll be back. I'll be back and stronger. You'll see my rehab montage highlight video now this time next year, and I'll be back for the London game.
Well, I feel like we can safely say this in a podcast this long. Big shout out for we had the games a little bit early, so yeah, we got Aer Lingus. I got Aer Lingus cheap, man. I got EasyJet for like 20 quid sterling return. I'm happy enough. Now that I say that, my flight's definitely not taking off from Stansted to Belfast. But we'll see. If you see us in Stansted next week, and you want to grab a 0-0 or a pint, rugby style, all right, man. Give us a shout. We'll be in Dublin Airport Sunday morning as well. We've got microphones, we've got cameras, so please do give us a shout. We'd love to chat to you. And just obviously a massive thanks to everyone for their continued support.
Yeah, and do reach out, because we might be wanting to speak to some fans, of course, as well. We wanted to see what people are up to while they're over there. So it'd be great.
Absolutely. Game is on Virgin Media, 1:50 p.m. on Sunday, ITV1 in the north, or Northern Ireland, depending on where you're from. And yeah. That's it, boys. That's it. 88 Sport, the official betting partner of the NFL in the UK and Ireland. Pro Football Ireland, Ireland's biggest, Ireland's best. Boys, I'll chat to you next week. So long. It's long and fun.